开始吧。All right. Today we're going to go back over
今天我们要
much
回
of what
顾
we
一下，
discussed last week.
我们要再回去讲一下上节课所讲的。Excuse me, David, can you raise your
Yes.
voice?
Oh, let me see if I can, I'll just increase the volume here. Hold on. Okay. Let me bring my computer in a little closer. All right. How's that?
Okay.
All right. I have the volume on maximum, and my face is right next to the microphone.
Okay.
All right. The reason that we took this big leap last week is because it's time for you to begin to think of the symbols of astrology and how they manifest in life.
之所以我们上周在讲课的时候向前跳了一大步，是因为现在你们大家应该去认识占星学里面的这些象征意义，而且这些象征意义是怎么样在我们的生活和生命中表现出来的。
You see, the most fundamental way that astrology is different from modern science is that astrology is holistic.
你们知道，占星学和现在的科学，它们最根本的不同，是因为占星学它是整合性的。
Holism simply means that you view life due to the interrelatedness of everything.
整合性这个词的意思就是你把生活中的一切都看到它们之间互相的联系。
Now, certainly science provides a very useful point of view.
当然，科学带给我们非常有用的这样一种视角。
You can learn a lot about life from dissecting the various parts of life.
你可以把人生，我们的生活分成很多个部分，用这种方式来理解生活。
But this is not the way that we as human beings experience reality.
但是这并不是我们人类经历事实的一种方式。
And astrology is a science associated with human experience of life.
那么占星学它是这样一种科学，它是和人们经历生活的这样一种感觉联系在一起。
Astrology attempts to provide a measure for all of the connections of reality.
占星学想要去度量、去测量所有一切之间的联系。
And so I want you to begin to think this way on an intellectual level as well.
所以我也希望你们能从智力上用这种方式来思考。
The
你们
truth
脑子
is,
这种方式来思考。
the truth is, you are already experiencing life this way. You just didn't fully realize it.
实际上，我们体验人生的方式就是如此，只是我们还没有完全的认识到这点而已。
At any given moment, we are all surrounded by many different aspects of life.
在每一个时刻，我们都被人生的不同的层面所包围着。
And astrology shows the connections between everything.
占星学向我们展示了所有一切之间的联系。
This is why astrology is sometimes difficult to measure from a strictly exact science point of view.
这就是I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Sure. This is why astrology is sometimes difficult to measure from a strict scientific point of view.
这就是为什么如果从严格的科学的这种观点来看，占星学很难被测量出来，很难被测度。
I give here the example of the planet Venus.
我给大家一个金星的例子。
Venus, of course, relates to feelings of love and affection.
金星当然是和我们的喜爱的感觉相关，爱的感觉相关。
But also is associated with money and attitudes about money.
但是也和金钱，还有我们对金钱的态度有关。
We also know that Venus is one of the indicators of mother's influence or the influence of important females in our life.
我们知道金星还象征着母亲的影响，还有我们人生中对我们那些重要的女性的影响。
But we also know that Venus is associated with candy and sweets and cosmetics and beauty products and fashion and clothing.
我们也知道金星和糖果、还有甜食、美容界、美、化妆品、时尚业、衣着、衣饰相关。
Venus is associated with the kidneys, as we know, and with our skin.
而且金星和肾也相关，和我们的皮肤也相关。
And Venus is also associated with the metal copper.
而且金星和那个铜这个金属相关。
I'll throw in an interesting little fact for you.
那么我给大家扔了很多这样的概念。
There are, in terms of Venus, the planet Venus being associated with the metal copper, there are, all of us have in our bodies trace amounts of metals.
那么金星和金属铜相关，其实我们身体中都有些微量的这种铜元素。
And it so happens that women tend to have a slightly higher level of copper than men do.
而且女性体内的铜比男性体内的铜稍微还多一些。
And men have a slightly higher trace element of iron.
而男性体内的铁比女性体内的铁又稍微多一些。
So the point I'm making this morning, though, or this evening for you, is that all of these associations are very diverse.
那么我今天早上或者是今天晚上跟你们说的是，所有的这些刚才所说的和金星相关的联系，它是多层面的。
And yet, astrology tells us that these seemingly unrelated categories are connected.
而占星学告诉我们，这些看上去毫不相关的东西，实际上是它们之间是有联系的。
Now, it is normal, absolutely normal, to become confused, mihula, at this point.
现在大家在这一点上感觉到疑惑是很正常的，很迷惑是很正常的。
I think even the word circumstance or circumstantial is has a slightly different meaning in Chinese than it does in English.
我想，即便是情境这个词，中文的意思和英文的意思也稍许有不同。
You know, last week we talked about Mercury in Sagittarius and Mars in Taurus.
你知道，我们上一次我们讲到了水星射手座、火星金牛座的这对组合。
And we said, as one example, under circumstantial, a university student works in a bank during the summer.
那么我们说，在情境层面，一种解读是一个大学生暑假期间在一家银行工作。
And so we were just making a general reference of how one way out of thousands of ways that this might manifest.
那么这种解读是这对组合1000种解读之中的一种表现，一种显化方式。
And like I pointed out in the material, later the same person may graduate with a degree in international finance.
那正像我在我们的课程材料中指出的，那也许这个人以后就从国际金融专业毕业。
And maybe later they'll work as a loan officer in a bank.
那也许呢，他以后呢在一家银行做信贷员。
Now, I'm certainly not trying to say that that's all that they could do.
当然，我不是说，那么这个人他只能做这些事。
But we're talking about associations that are consistent with Sagittarius and Taurus symbolism.
但是我们在这里的解读，实际上是和射手座和金牛座的象征的意义是一致的。
Sagittarius easily fits university student, international, and sales.
那么射手座和大学生、国际化的，还有销售员这种词是非常符合这种象征的。
I don't know if this is true in China, but in America, a loan officer in a bank is in a sales role.
我不知道在中国是否这样，不过在美国，那么信贷员在银行他的角色，他实际上是一个销售员的角色。
Because the loan officer is contacting people to see if they want to refinance their loans.
那么因为信贷员他们会联系客户，想询问他们是否需要对他们的信贷进行再融资。
And most loan officers will make money off of the commissions they make from the loans that they make for the bank.
那么大部分信贷员会从他们给别人的贷款里面提取佣金。
Okay. But let's take this a little further.
那么我们再进一步往下讲。
Here we have, I'm introducing you to someone you will see in your EAC course when you take the intermediate program.
当我们中级课的时候呢，大家会见到这位女士。我们在中级课的时候，她会常常出现。
This is our no-door girl right here.
这是我们弱道女孩。
She has a lot of Virgo and Aquarius.
她有很多的处女座和水瓶座的元素。
So you'll get to know her.
所以你们会认识她的。
And she always asks very good questions. She's pretty
她总
smart.
是会问一些很好的问题。
She's very smart and somewhat critical.
她非常聪明，而且喜欢批评。
Sometimes this student gives me a hard time.
有时候这个学生会给我提些难题。
So here's what the no-door girl asks. She wants to know, what if the planets were arranged differently?
那么这个弱道女孩她问这个问题：如果行星的配置不同呢，有所不同会怎样？
Suppose Mercury was in Taurus and Mars was in Sagittarius, would the situations be the same?
如果这个人水星在金牛座，火星在射手座，这两颗行星的位置交换一下，还会是同样的解读吗？
And my answer is possibly, maybe.
那么我的回答是有可能一样。
But here is where I want you to think this through very carefully.
但是呢，在这里我希望大家仔细的思考一下，更彻底的思考一下。
There are some important differences to think about that would make this combination different.
那么有一些非常重要的这些点在这里会让这两个组合的表现形式会不同。
First off, the differences of the planet. Mercury is the planet we associate with our mental faculties, isn't it?
那么水星这颗行星和我们的思维能力是联系在一起的，思考方式联系在一起。
And Mercury in Sagittarius is certainly someone that likes to learn, especially in a higher education setting.
那么水星在射手的人，这个人呢是一个喜欢学习的人，特别是喜欢那些高等教育。
We know that somebody with Mercury in Sagittarius likes to think about the world. They like to think internationally.
我们知道水星射手座的人，他们喜欢有全球化的思考，喜欢这种就是全球化的这样的思考模式。
It's warm in here. All right. And so, if we think about Mercury not only as the mental planet, but also as the communication planet, that we can begin to understand that Mercury in Sagittarius is a good placement for someone who is in sales.
如果我们这个考虑到水星不只和我们的心智能力相关，而且还是和沟通相关的一颗行星，实际上我们就能够明白这个水星和销售这个岗位的意义。
We can think of a lot of things that Mercury in Sagittarius might be. Mercury in Sagittarius can be a teacher, could be a consultant, can be in sales or marketing.
水星在射手座的人，他们可能在职业上可能有各种职业，比如说他是一个老师，或者是一个咨询师，或者是一个在市场营销部门或者是销售部门工作的人。
So Mercury in Sagittarius is really a good fit for being a loan officer, among other things.
所以说，在水星射手座的诸多可能中，他作为一个信贷员，是一个对水星来射手座来说是一个好的这样一个符合他的一个职业。
Now, if we reverse this, like the No-Door girl has asked us to do, then Mercury in Taurus, does it mean the same thing?
如果就像这个弱道女孩问的，如果把这个水星放在金牛座，他会做一样的事情吗？
We all know that Taurus might be associated with a bank, and somebody with Mercury in Taurus certainly might work in a bank.
那么我们知道，金牛座是和银行相联系的这样一个星座。那么一个人水星在金牛座，当然可能是在银行工作。
However, probably not in sales.
不过呢，可能他不会作为一个销售的岗位。
Now, I'm sure there are plenty of bank clerks that might have Mercury in Taurus, for example.
我很确信，在银行肯定有不少人，他们的水星在金牛座。
Or even other roles in a bank that don't require any sales or any marketing talents at all.
比如说在银行有很多的这样的岗位，他们不需要营销或者是销售的这样的有这样的岗位，不需要这样的职位。
In this reverse example, what about Mars and Sagittarius?
那么火星，如果我们换一下，火星在射手座会是怎么样的表达呢？
Certainly, their style of action would be very energetic, very restless.
那毫无疑问，他们的行动方式肯定是那种不安分的、精力充沛的这样的方式。
In fact, my teacher used to say that somebody with Mars and Sagittarius walks as if they were always wearing running shoes.
那么我的老师曾经说，火星在射手座的人，他们走路的方式都好像是他们一直在穿着跑鞋一样。
Now, I see that we have some questions here. Are these questions for me, or are they questions amongst the group?
Among the group.
Is
You
it-
can
okay.
you can explain. I'll translate later.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure I don't miss any important questions, that's all, because the interaction is very important. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Okay, good. And so you would have somebody, they've got Mercury in Taurus and Mars in Sagittarius. Physically, they would be energetic.
那么这个人，水星在金牛座，火星在射手座的人，他们是非常有精力充沛的，在身体行动方面。
Right. But verbally, they would be much less inclined to engage in conversation.
但是在言语方面呢，他们更少于，就是说不是那么容易就跟别人交流对话，不那么倾向于。
No. Mercury in Taurus might be good in response to a customer's concerns in areas that they are comfortable with and familiar with.
那么他们可能是在他们更加熟悉和舒适的领域和客户对话。
Now, because I worked as an astrologer for various companies in my career as an astrologer, I knew a lot of people in the construction industry.
因为我作为占星师和各行各业的人都打过交道，我知道很多是在施工承包这个领域工作的人。
And I have to tell you, amongst contractors, engineers, and architects, there were quite a few people with Mercury in Taurus.
那我要告诉大家，在建筑承包商、工程师，还有建筑承包商、工程师，contractors, engineers, and also what?
Architects.
还有那个建筑师，这些行业有很多人，他们的水星是在金牛座。
Right. So Taurus is attracted to the construction industry.
那么金牛座经常会被建筑这个行业所吸引。
Sagittarius likes travel, adventure, freedom, being outdoors.
那么射手座呢，喜欢旅行，喜欢自由，喜欢户外的这些活动。
Right. Someone with Mars and Sagittarius likes being on their own, away from home. This appeals to them.
所以这个火星射手座的人呢，他们喜欢离家出远门，这对他们很有吸引力。他们很自由。
So when you think about just these two symbols together, Mercury and Taurus, Mars and Sagittarius, you could imagine easily that they might be attracted to the building or construction industry, particularly in terms of travel or international.
所以说，你想这个水星金牛、火星射手座的人呢，很容易他们可能就被建筑这个行业所吸引。建筑这个 行业吸引，而且特别是在离家很远的或者是海外的这样的项目。
I was very excited when I found this picture, this little cartoon of this guy here.
那么当我找到了这个卡通的时候，我特别兴奋。
Because it's a contractor, and there's his suitcase.
因为这是一个建筑承包商，而且他还带着行李。
So this is Mercury in Taurus and Mars in Sagittarius right here.
所以说这是一个火星金牛座，水星金牛，火星射手的人。
Now, certainly international finance remains a possibility for this combination, but construction or engineering is probably a better fit.
自然，那个国际金融对这个人呢也是有吸引力的。不过我觉得建筑行业呢，可能对他们是更适合他们的一个行业。
Now, please keep in mind that you will learn other astrological associations, such as houses, meaning house position, or aspects.
另外呢，要提醒大家记得一下，以后呢，我们还会学到行星落在宫位，还有行星之间相位这些的解读。
Mm-hmm. And when you are learning houses and aspects, you will learn that Mercury in Taurus might have other possibilities depending on the house that it's in and how the planet is aspected.
当你们学到宫位和相位的时候，那你们也会学到水星在金牛座，根据他们所落的宫位，还有所形成的相位不同，当然它有其他的很多的可能性的表达。
But for now, it's important to learn the fundamentals.
不过现在呢，非常重要的是大家先要学好基础。
I see a lot of discussion going on here. What's being talked about, Felicia?
Some are asking what's the difference from Scorpio and Taurus, because it seems Scorpio also relate to banks.
You're right. Both Taurus, that's exactly right. Both Taurus and Scorpio are concerned with money.
这位同学说的是没错，金牛座和天蝎座他们都是很在意钱。
Between the two, though, Scorpio is more interested in issues of control, trust, and security.
不过在这两者，那么天蝎座呢，更在乎的是控制、信托，还有信托信任这样的方面。
Mm-hmm. Taurus is interested in the stable building process of creating abundance.
那么金牛座更在意的是稳定的创造丰盛这个过程。
Scorpio wants to know, how can we protect this abundance? How can we make sure we do not lose this?
那么天蝎座呢，他更在意的是我们如何能够保护我们的财富，我们如何不失去我们的财富。
You see, Scorpio is more concerned about how does my abundance affect other people, and how does their abundance affect me?
那么天蝎座对于我的丰盛可能会如何影响他人，他们的这种富有，我的富有会如何影响他人，他人的富有会如何影响我，这种议题很感兴趣。
Scorpio is much more concerned about the control factors.
那么天蝎座对于控制这个因素非常感兴趣。
Let me give you an example. And this is probably why there are more corporate officers or CEOs who are Scorpios, by the way.
我给大家一个例子，这是为什么很多的 CEO 他们是天蝎座。
Mm-hmm. Someone with a lot of Taurus might be the president of a local bank.
那么一个有很多金牛座的人，他可能是一个地方银行的主席。
They may have built up a very solid reputation as a reliable banker.
他们可能会有建立了非常良好的信誉，他是一个很好的银行家，有这样良好的信誉。
But a larger bank may come into their territory, for example.
但是如一个大银行可能来到他们这个地方。
Maybe someone who is more of a Scorpio is looking at how can I either compete with these smaller banks or buy them up.
那么这个大银行家可能会想，要么我怎么跟这个地方银行竞争，或者要么我就把它收购了。
And so there's a difference. I think Scorpio in some ways is probably a greedier sign than Taurus.
Greedier.
Yes, greedier. Has more desire. And even more of an all or nothing attitude too.
我觉得从某种层面来讲，天蝎座是比金牛座更贪婪的一个星座。他们的胃口更大，他们要么就是什么都不要，要么他就要全部他都要。
Taurus wants to create something that is solid and comfortable.
那么金牛座想构建一些非常稳固而且舒适的东西。
Scorpio is concerned with what would happen if we lost this comfort? What if we lost this stability? What kind of controls do we have in place?
那么天蝎座更在乎的是我们有什么样的控制措施？万一我们失去了这种我们的舒适，我们的东西怎么办？
Scorpio wants to know, what if someone was trying to steal this from me or steal this from us?
那么天蝎座会考虑，要是有人想从我们这儿偷窃，该怎么办？
In fact, building trusted relationships is the obsession of Scorpio.
实际上，想要去构建信任的关系，是天蝎座非常着迷于此。
Okay. So both of these are signs concerned with money and resources, but in much different ways.
所以说，这两个星座对于资源和钱都很在意，但是方式不同。
Okay. Was there another question there?
Some students said that Taurus do not want to in construction, are not interested in the details. Maybe they'll subcontract that to Virgo.
That's right. Absolutely.
这位同学说，金牛座的人对于细节并不在意，他们可能会把这个细节的问题都外包给处女座的人，在建筑中。
That's very true. Very true. Of course, you can get Taurus combined with Virgo, and they'll do both. Think about that.
这个说的也是对的，不过呢，也可能这个金牛座的人呢，他有处女座的元素，所以说他们两者都可以做了。
See, today's lesson is all about combinations. I want you to think in terms of combinations of planets.
那么今天我们的这个课程呢，全部都是组合，我希望大家去想这些组合。
If you mix Taurus with Virgo, think about what you are combining. What does that mean about the person?
如果你把金牛座和处女座组合在一起，你想想，如果这个人有这两个元素的话呢，他会有什么这样的表现形式？
That could be an ideal combination for someone in the construction industry, among other things.
那么这是在各种表现方式中，这个人呢，他在建筑行业 这是一个对他来说是一个非常理想化的这样一个组合。
Okay. Any questions about this before we move on?
No questions. They are just comment about that.
Okay, good. I'd love to know what some of the comments are.
Oh.
I know. I see. I have Taurus as my IC. Love designing my home. Look at that. Yeah. I see that one. Helen, thank you, Helen. That's great. All right. Okay. Let's move on to a little further here. Here's a very good question.
那下面是一个很好的问题。
Our no-door guy says circumstances don't always refer to career situations, do they? Aren't we talking about just commonplace instances that fit planetary combinations?
那这个落到男孩问，他说情境并不总是指工作情境，对吧？我们是不是该谈谈符合行星组合的一般通常的表现？
And then he says, of course, I was born with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Scorpio. What kind of situations would be typical from my combination?
这个男生问，我的太阳落在处女座，月亮在天蝎座，我这样的组合和通常的表现方式？
Of course, the answer to his first question is he's right. We're not, when we're talking about circumstantial, we're not just talking about career situations.
那当然，我给他的回答是，他说的很对。我们谈行星组合的时候，当然不只是在谈工作的情境。
What are some examples that might fit being born with the sun in Virgo and the moon in Scorpio?
那这个太阳处女座、月亮天蝎座的人会有什么样其他的一些表现形式呢？是符合这样一种行星组合呢？
And this goes, these examples will go to the visual for you.
那么我给大家举的这些例子呢，实际上你们都可以在视觉中把它视觉化，想象它是什么样的画面。
An observant man wearing dark-rimmed glasses notices a pen that a sexy woman leaves and returns it to her.
比如这样一个简单的这样一个情景，一个戴着黑框眼镜并善于观察的男人注意到一位性感的女士的笔掉下来了，然后他就捡起来还给了她。
Now, why did I say observant?
那我为什么说这个是个善于观察的男人呢？
We know that Virgo is a sign associated with careful observation of details.
我们知道处女座是一个善于观察细节的人，善于仔细观察细节的人。
Now, I only threw in the dark-rimmed glasses for two reasons.
我把这个例子里面就是放进了黑框眼镜，是因为有两个原因。
Actually, for three reasons.
实际上有3个原因。
One, the guy in the picture has them on.
首先，我放在的这个照片上，这个
So I
男
meant
生
it to
戴
be.
着眼镜。
So I meant it to be funny because he says, "Hey, that's not fair. You know I wear dark-rimmed glasses." So.
因为他可能说，哦，这不公平，你知道我戴着黑框眼镜。
But there's truth in this humor for two reasons. These are the other two reasons.
但是呢，我这样说呢，实际上也是实话，因为以下这2个原因。
A lot of Virgos tend to wear glasses, number one, and the dark-rimmed is Scorpio.
那很多处女座呢，他们喜欢戴黑框眼镜，而且这个黑色呢也符合天蝎座。
And the third reason is because Duke wears dark-rimmed glasses.
第3个原因当然是因为 Duke 他戴的就是黑框眼镜。
And he's a Virgo with the moon in Scorpio. So.
那他是一个太阳处女、月亮天蝎的人。
Okay. All right. Now, again, he notices a pen, so this is very Virgo.
那么他注意到一支笔，这是非常处女座的这种关注细节。
And of course, he notices the pen that a sexy woman leaves. So this is his moon in Scorpio. He can feel that there's a sexy woman here. He sees her. He reacts to that sexiness.
那么他注意到这个性感女性，因为他的月亮在天蝎座，他能够感觉到那个女性她的性感。
Yes. So I'm sure that when he returns her pen, he looks at her with Scorpio eyes.
所以说我敢保证，当他还那个女性笔的时候呢，他是会用天蝎座的眼神看那个女人的。
I'm wanting you to have fun with these associations.
我希望大家呢看到这些组合的时候呢，也乐一乐。
This next example is really obvious. A neatly dressed man with intense eyes appears very focused on his microblog.
那下面这个描述呢，也是这个组合的一个表现。一位穿着整齐的男人，他有一双敏锐的眼睛，专注地盯着他的微博。
Certainly, it's neatly dressed is one of the examples of Virgo.
那么穿着整齐，这是处女座的一个例子。
Again, intense eyes would be Scorpio.
那么敏锐的眼睛，这是天蝎座的眼睛。
Both Virgo and Scorpio are very focused signs.
那么处女座和天蝎座都是有这种专注的精神的。
And microblog again is, could be lots of things. It's more that there's an area of concern that he is very focused on.
微博这个部分跟这个倒没有什么太大的关系，这就是他非常关注的一个领域。
Okay. And then the third example is a slightly nervous man dressed mostly in black is standing in a crowd and slyly checks to make sure his wallet is still in his coat.
那么第三个例子呢，是一个略显神经质的男人穿了一身黑色，站在人群中偷偷地检查他的钱包是否还在衣袋中。
The slightly nervous man, that's definitely Virgo.
那么一个略显神经质的男人，这个绝对是处女座的一个表达。
Again, black is often a sign of Leo, not the only sign, but one of the signs.
What? Black to Scorpio? You mean?
Black, yes. Yes. The
那
color
么黑
black
色
or
呢
the
是天蝎的一个颜色。
And then checking to make sure your wallet is still in your coat is again, this is a Scorpio response. I'm in a crowd. I better check my wallet. Better make sure my wallet is there.
那么在人群中偷偷检查他的钱包是否还在衣袋中，这是一个天蝎座的一个表达，因为他在人群中，他会很警惕，会看看我的钱包还在不在。
Someone is losing their rose over here. What's happening?
I have no idea.
Okay. All right. Any questions about those examples before we go on?
大家有什么
Right. Sign Virgo.
Someone
Worry
asked
too
you-
much. Yes. Go ahead.
Emily says this is the sign of Virgo, tends to worry too much. This man checking his
Yes.
wallet.
That's right. Well, that's the Virgo, but Scorpio is more concerned about trust issues with the people around them.
当然处女座有这样的表现形式，他会有些忧虑，但是呢，天蝎座更是对周围的人他不够信任，他会想周围的人是不是会偷偷的拿他的东西啊，等等等等，这是更是天蝎座的一种方式。 一种表现。
For example, in America, a woman with this combination, right? A woman with Moon in Scorpio, Sun in Virgo, in her purse, she may carry pepper spray.
那么如果在美国，如果这个组合是个女人的话呢，她可能在她的钱包里会带上那个喷胡椒的喷嘴儿。
Yes. And so she's ready. She's even knows exactly where that pepper spray is. She keeps it in the top of her purse, just inside.
那么她可能她已经准备好了那个防狼喷雾。
And she's ready to pull that spray out and spray it right in someone's face.
她已经准备好了，随时就可以把它拿出来，喷到另外一个人的脸上。
So you can be glad that your subways are safer than the ones in America.
你们的地铁比美国的地铁安全，你们对这一点应该感到高兴。
In America, a lot more people carry things like that in their purses.
在美国有很多人，他们的那个皮包里面都装着防狼喷雾。
Especially.
Someone asked.
Yes. Go ahead.
Someone asked, what's the difference of the neurology of Aquarius from Virgo? The nervous.
The difference in what?
Neurotic.
Oh, neurosis. Well, number one, any sign can be neurotic. Okay, any sign. Neurosis is something that any sign can have.
首先说神经质这个问题，任何星座都可能有神经质的表现。
And there's also kind of a difference between nervous and fidgety and restless. These are all similar, aren't they? Nervous, fidgety,
紧张，
restless.
还有一些坐立不安，还有一些非常不安分。这三种情况呢，他们也是会稍有不同。
The two signs that have the most nervous energy are Gemini and Virgo.
就是这种紧张感最强烈的两个星座是nervous 紧张的能量最强烈的两个星座是双子座和处女座。
But there's a difference, isn't there, between Virgo and Gemini? Quite a difference.
但是呢，双子座和处女座呢，他们两个有相当的不同，这种神经质的表现。
Virgo is an earth sign, not an air sign like Gemini.
那么处女座是一个土象星座，它不像双子座是风象星座。
And so there's a little bit more internal worry, slightly more internal nervousness.
那么它更多是内在的这种焦虑。
Which will show in the face with a little look of worry.
那么他们会在脸上表露出来那种担忧。
Gemini may seem lots of nervous energy, but not look as worried. See?
那么双子座呢，可能他会有很多的这种神经的这样的I'm sorry, not in the face, right?
Right, will not look as worried. That's right.
他们可能会有这种神经质的能量，但是它看起来并不是像担忧那种，并不是表现出来担忧。
I'll give you an example, a sort of comic example.
我给大家一个比较好玩的这样一个例子。
Gemini would be talking and lots of nervous energy and not know that toilet paper is stuck to the bottom of their shoe.
那么双子座的人呢，可能是不断喋喋不休，他把他那种神经质的能量用他的喋喋不休表达了出来，但是他甚至没有注意到他的那个鞋上 是就是粘着一大卷卫生纸呢。
And Virgo will notice nothing else but that.
而处女座呢，他只会注意到他的鞋上粘着那个卫生纸。
All right. Do we have another question here?
Actually, the initial question about the nervousness between Aquarius and Virgo.
Yeah, Aquarius is not a nervous sign.
水瓶座不是一个神经质的星座。
But you didn't use the word nervous. You used the word neurotic, and there's a difference. Neurotic and nervous are not the same thing.
I'm sorry, this is nervous, right? What you're just talking is nervous, right?
Yeah, but in the beginning I said all the signs can be neurotic.
就是神经质这个词是 neurotic 这个词，就所有的星座都可能有神经质的反应。但是就是说，刚才他说的那个呢，处女座和双子座，它是那种 nervous， 就是那种紧张的那种紧张兮兮的，就是那个翻译是
Yeah, they're not the same.
神经的。
They're not the same thing. You know, neurotic is a neurosis is a psychological term pertaining to a negative reaction to stress.
神经质呢，实际上是一个心理学的一个术语，它是对于压力的一种反应。
And all the signs can every sign can have a negative or destructive or unhealthy response to stress.
那每个星座对于压力呢，都会有那些不健康的这样一个，或者是一些破坏性的反应行为模式。
I think, however, it's interesting. Aquarius and Virgo do have some things in common.
那么比较有趣的是，水瓶座和处女座，它们两者确实有一些共同点。
They are both somewhat mental signs. We know Aquarius is very intellectual, very inventive, original.
他们都是那些更有关于心智的星座。我们知道水瓶座是非常有创造性的，有发明创造能力的这样一个星座。
Now, we know that Virgo is not as inventive or necessarily original as Aquarius.
我们知道处女座不像水瓶座那样，有那么多的发明创造性，独创性，不像
For example,
独创。
Virgo energy would be very good for repairing a broken watch.
那么处女座的能量呢，很善于去修理那个摔坏的表。
But if you combine Aquarius with Virgo, you might get someone like Steve Jobs.
但是如果你把水瓶座和处女座合在一起的话呢，这个你就可能会得到一个乔布斯。
Because he had Mercury in Aquarius and his rising sign or ascendant of Virgo.
因为他的上升星座是处女座，而水星又在水瓶座。
Just as one example.
这是一个例子。
I see a lot of Aquarius and Virgo mixed together with people who are in the computer industry and in various technical and science areas.
我看到很多人，他们有处女座和水瓶座的这样的组合，他们在计算机行业或者在科学领域。
And again, this is good. I want you to think about sign combinations, but also sign and planet combinations.
那么这也很好。我希望你们想这种星座的组合，同时呢，也要考虑星座和行星的组合。
Is there another question there? It looks like there might be.
They are just talking about different combination. And for example, one person's friend has Virgo and Aquarius, and he wants to do that artificial intelligence.
great. If he comes up with a good AI program, he can come to work at no door.
就是说这个我们弱道也非常需要人工智能的这样的软件。所以说如果你这个朋友做，可以介绍给我们。
All right. I see a question. How to interpret if I guess they mean swap planets rather than swoop. Swap planets falling into sun and moon sign in this example. Which example are we talking about?
就是你说是交换哪两个？我们谈的是哪个例子呢？交换太阳和月亮。这个太快了。
I see. Okay, you're talking about the Virgo Scorpio example, right?
你说的是说的是太阳天蝎座，月亮处女座，对吗？
I think they are, right?
Yes.
对。
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the difference is, even though some of these things would be similar,
虽然有些是
we have to think about the difference between the sun and moon, don't we?
我们必须考虑太阳和月亮的不同在哪里。太阳和月亮有哪些不同？
The moon in Scorpio is going to hide or disguise their mood, their feeling.
月亮在天蝎座的人呢，他们更善于隐藏或者伪装他们的感受。
Whereas the sun in Scorpio may hide their intentions. There's a difference.
但是太阳在天蝎座的人，他们会去隐藏他们的意图，他们隐藏的是他们的意图。
I also think with the moon in Virgo, you would probably see a little bit more anxiousness because the moon is more emotional. The moon is more our moods. So you get a shift, changes in moods, see?
那么我想，如果是月亮在处女座的这个人的组合呢，这个人看上去可能更焦虑一些，因为月亮是和我们的情绪变化联系在一起的。
And so there's a shift of anxiety.
所以说他的焦虑感会有这样的有变化。
Someone with the moon in Virgo is going to be a little bit more reactive to their environment in Virgo ways. Let me give you an example.
月亮在处女座的人，对于他们周围的环境，他们可能是他的反应会更大一些。我给大家一个例子。
Suppose someone with the moon in Virgo and the sun in Scorpio is on a train traveling across China.
比如说这样一个月亮处女、太阳天蝎的人，他坐火车旅行。
When they first get on the train, they may go, something smells bad.
他们刚上这个火车的时候，他可能就鼻子嗅了一嗅，觉得哇，这个味道不好，有气味。
And then they look at the seat they're about to sit in, and they notice that somebody has left some cracker crumbs who was eating there before, so they brush off the seat.
那么他可能看他的座位，看到那个座位上有那饼干屑，然后呢，他要把那个饼干屑都扫在座位下面去。
And then they stop the conductor of the train as she walks by, and they say, "Are we on time? Are we going to leave on time?"
然后那个列车员过来了，他就会把列车员叫住，对他们说：“我们是不是准点呀？我们是不是准点呀？”
And when are you going to be serving? What time are you going to be serving snacks?
你什么时候会提供零食啊？
And then later, when the snacks or food is served, what's the expiration date on this?
那么如果是别人给他的零食，他可能又在看，他说：“哎，这个零食是什么时候过期啊？”
These are shifting, changing, moody worries about the environment.
那么这个人呢，月亮在处女座的人呢，他对于这个环境的变化，他的情绪也会不断的在变化。
There's a need, an emotional need for the environment to be clean.
他需要这个环境是干净整洁的，这是一种他的情绪的需要，他感情的需要。
For things to happen in an organized way.
他需要这个事情呢都是井井有条。
And this is more evident in a reactive way because it's the moon.
那么这是一个因为他有月亮在处女座，所以说他对于这个周围的环境，他更有这种反应，会有更多的这样的反应。
Right. And in that sense, of course, Sun in Scorpio, maybe this person is on this train and they're a spy. I'll give you an extreme example.
我给大家一个极端的例子吧。他这个太阳天蝎月亮处女座的人，在这个列车上，没准他是个间谍。
Maybe they're a corporate spy.
他是一个商业间谍。
And they're traveling across China because they're going to spy on a rival company.
那么他在全国中国这个到处四处旅行，是因为他们想去刺探他们竞争对手的信息。
And obviously their intentions are secret.
那么他的意图，他的目的是，他是有一个秘密的目的。
They are executing the will. In other words, they are expressing the will of the Sun in Scorpio. Their intent is to find out about these other companies.
那么他们的目的呢，是要去找他们竞争对手的这些信息。
And this they don't share with anyone.
那么他不会把这个跟别人，他不会把这一点告诉别人。
You see, there's a difference.
那你们知道这是有差异的，就是这两个组合的不同。
Now, I saw that there was a question. Helen had a question. She said, I don't think I have much Virgo energy. How come I have all the requirements you are talking now? I would have to, Helen, we would have to look at your chart to analyze this, and we are not that advanced yet in the program.
Helen 说，他并没有很多处女能量，但是他为什么也有这么多焦虑呢？老师说我们还没有讲到那些呢，就是我们现在还不是到分析你的星图的时候。
There are different ways of being able to get that kind of behavior. It's not exclusively Virgo.
有这样的行为呢，可能会有各种各样的不同的组合，这并不是只有处女座才有的行为模式。
And so again, when we're talking about these combinations, you want to think about, particularly with the sun and moon, you want to think about what's the difference between the sun and moon. See? And we know the moon, for everybody, the moon is more moody, more changeable, emotional.
再一次，当我们谈太阳月亮组合的时候，你必须要去理解太阳月亮它有什么不同。月亮呢，更是那种情绪的变换的情绪的这样一个能量。
Just think about the difference between Moon and Virgo getting on a messy train that smells bad versus Moon and Pisces.
你就要想一想，月亮在处女座的人和月亮在双鱼座的人，他们两个都登上了这一个脏乱差的火车，他们的不同的反应。
Moon and Pisces just sits down, and maybe it smells bad, maybe the place is dirty, and they just put in, they just start listening to music from their iPod.
那么月亮在双鱼座的人可能看到了，确实确实这个车厢很臭，这个到处座位上也是乱糟糟的，他们就是一屁股坐下来，然后开始听他们的 iPod 就好了。
So now they're just in another world. They don't even see it the mess. They're sitting there and they're listening to music, you know. They're fine.
他们一听音乐，他们就到了另外一个世界了，他们根本不在意周围是脏乱差的。他们对环境，他们没那么多。
Right, and maybe maybe they bought some chips and they're now eating chips.
也许他买了一些薯片，然后他就开始吃薯片。
GPR, right, GPR, and maybe the person next to them with the moon in Virgo finally taps on their shoulder and says, "Hey, could you not spill these chips, these crumbs on me?"
那也许他边上坐的那个月处女的人最终忍不了了，就拍拍他们的肩膀说：“你能不能不把那个薯片吃的到处都是啊？”
And certainly, Moon in Pisces didn't mean to be spilling the crumbs, but there they, and so they're you know.
月双鱼的人并不是就是想要把这个薯片这个屑弄得到处都是。
All right. Was there any other comments? See, Duke's having some fun here. Any other comments you want me to respond to?
No, they are talking about. Someone asked what's the difference from Sun in Aquarius and Mercury in Aquarius? What's the difference? Manifestation.
Yeah. Well, the Sun doesn't have a voice except through Mercury.
那么太阳本身是没有声音的，除非它是通过水星。
Mercury is think about the Sun almost as being someone a leader that needs a press agent, a spokesperson.
你就想想太阳呢，它是一个领导，这个领导呢需要他的发言人，而水星是他的发言人。
That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think that's mostly true.
当然了，我这样说有一点夸张，不过呢，基本上也是正确的。
And you can look at someone's Mercury, and that'll tell you a lot about their style of communication.
那么你看一个水星，你看看星盘中的水星，可以看到这个人的他的沟通交流的方式。
Okay. All right. You can have a lot of fun with that, looking at the Sun versus Mercury. Because imagine a Leo with Mercury, a Sun in Leo with Mercury in Cancer.
大家可以用这种组合的方式来玩一下。你想象一个狮子座的人，太阳在狮子座，但是呢，水星Mercury in Aquarius, right?
No. I said imagine Sun in Leo and Mercury in Virgo.
Mercury in Virgo.
I'm sorry. No. I said Mercury in Cancer. Mercury in Cancer.
太阳在狮子座，水星在巨蟹座的人。
Which would be fairly common because, Mercury doesn't stray very far from the Sun. So Mercury, with the Suns in Leo, a lot of Suns in Leo would have Mercury in Cancer.
这种组合是常见的，因为水星总是离太阳不远，很多太阳在狮子座的人，水星都在巨蟹座。
But Leo is a sign that has a lot of pride. Leo wants to put on a good show.
那么狮子座呢，他是内在有很多骄傲的人，他希望他的表现特别的突出。
But the sign Cancer is more emotionally reactive, a little more insecure.
但是呢，巨蟹座呢，它更是在情绪上面会很反应，会有很多反应，而且它是一个不安全感相当强的这样一个星座。
So this may be a Leo that sometimes suffers a little bit from stage fright.
From what? Stage fright.
Stage fright, F-R-I-G-H-T. It means anxiety when you get up in front of people to talk.
那么就这个水星巨蟹座、太阳狮子座的人呢，他可能会有这种，如果让他上台演讲的时候，他可能会非常的紧张。
Even though underneath they have a lot of courage. They're a Leo. They have a lot of courage.
虽然他们内心，他们是个狮子座，他们有很多的勇气，内在有很多勇气。
But if you reverse that and you say Sun in Cancer, Mercury in Leo, you may have a Cancer that sounds more confident than they really are.
那么，如果你把这两个星这个组合换一下，这是一个太阳巨蟹座但水星狮子座的人，那么你看到表现是，他好像看起来比他实际上的自信的多的一个人。
In fact, I think it's very instructive to look at Mercury and the Sun in terms of how your will is voiced, how you voice your will, because Mercury, remember, is the closest planet to the Sun. Mercury has its ear to the Sun, very hot ear.
所以说呢，我觉得会非常有趣。你们看一下太阳和水星的组合，因为水星呢，它是有一个贴着太阳的耳朵的，还有太阳之耳。你看看它的这个太阳的意志是怎么样通过水星来表现的。
Okay. Was there another comment before I go on? Because I wanted to move on.
大家还有什么问题吗？如果没有什么问题，我就往下讲了。
Go on. Okay.
Someone asked how to mutual reception.
Oh, that's a whole other issue, isn't it? Well, I'll go ahead and comment on that about mutual reception.
有人问互融的问题，就是互相在彼此对方的星座。
Mutual reception means when you have two bodies or two planets that are in each other's signs.
那么互融的意思就是说，有两颗行星分别在对方的，就是说在对方行星掌管的星座。
It's kind of like they're wearing each other's clothes.
就有点像两个行星互相穿着对方的衣服一样。
For example, the moon in Aries and Mars in Cancer.
比如说，月亮在白羊座，火星在巨蟹座。
And what this means is, remember, astrology is also based upon a theory of resonance in our system, resonance.
那这到底什么意思呢？要记得，占星学是基于共振的，它是能量的共振。
And this resonance with mutual reception means that when you have these two planets that are mutually receptive, they appear to almost change places with each other.
那么互融意味着这两个行星，它们好像交换个位置一样。
So that Mars in Cancer, Moon in Aries, may seem to behave, for example, like Mars in Aries, Moon in Cancer.
所以说，这样一个火星在巨蟹座、月亮在白羊座的人，他们的行为模式可能看上去有点像月亮在巨蟹座、火星在白羊座的人。
And there are many different examples of this, of course.
当然，这有很多不同的例子。
You know, you can have Jupiter in the Sun, Cancer, and the Moon in Sagittarius.
比如说，木星在巨蟹座，月亮在射手座。
So mutual reception is just a term that refers to this phenomena. See?
那么互融就是我们讲的就是这样一种现象。
In fact, I'll type the phrase out so you'll see it. Okay. All right. I'm going to go on, and then I'll come back to some of these other questions here.
那么我们往下讲啊，我们往下讲，等一会儿我们再回来问问题。对，今天就是组合，我们不能讲太多了。
Okay. What about Venus in Aries
那
and
么
Mercury and
金
Gemini?
星
How
在
might
白
that?
羊座，水星在双子座，又会有什么样的表达呢？
And here's 3 circumstantial examples of this.
那
One is
我给了大家3个例子，这是一个情境方面的、情境层面的例子。
a teenage girl with a bad complexion eats spicy candy while talking nonstop on her cell phone.
一个状况不佳的少女吃着辣味儿糖果，不停的聊着不停的电话聊天。
Now, I saw this on the subway in Beijing one day.
有一天我在北京的地铁上就看到了这样的状况。
And this is what went through my mind. I thought, I wonder if she has Venus in Aries and Mercury in Gemini.
那么当我看到这个少女的时候呢，我就在想，她是不是有金星在白羊座，水星在双子座啊？
Now, she's a teenager. Lots of teenagers have complexion issues. This is not unusual.
她是一个10几岁的孩子，所以很多10几岁的孩子呢有这样一种状况。A bad complexion.
However,
complexion.
hold on. Yeah, it means the face.
OK， 她的就是脸上可能有很多青春痘哈，这10几岁的孩子。
Sometimes a lot of teenagers have a little acne, okay, a little bit of acne. However, Venus in Aries, remember Venus is the skin, right?
因为我这个是金星在白羊座，金星是和皮肤相关的。
Right. And not all teenagers have skin problems, only some of them do, right?
那并不是所有的10几岁的这种青少年都有皮肤问题，其中只有一些人有皮肤问题。
And Venus in Aries can sometimes mean the skin will react, such as in ways that show sort of eruptions on the skin, such as acne, for example, or a rash.
那有时候呢，金星在白羊座呢，是说这个人他的皮肤可能是对这种东西会有反应，比如说就会起红疹啊，或者是有起那个粉刺啊。
This teenage girl may not know this, but there could be also she may be making the problem worse by eating the spicy candy.
那么这个少女可能不知道这种状况，但是呢，她如果吃那种辣的那种东西的话呢，是会使她的皮肤状况变得更糟。
But she likes. See, Venus is what your tastes are, what you like and don't like. She likes the spiciness because of Venus in Aries.
但是呢，她可能不知道，但是呢，她这个金星在白羊座，金星也是我们的喜好，她喜欢吃这种辣的东西。
So here she is. She likes this spicy candy. She's eating it, and it's probably not good for her complexion.
那么这就是她的状况，她喜欢这种辣的食品，虽然说这个辣的食品对她皮肤不好。
But she's also talking away on her cell phone.
那同时呢，她也不断她在保电话中。
Okay. Was there a comment about that? About the complexion? I see some people got into that a little bit.
No.
No? Sure. All right. A woman dressed in a red coat talks quickly with a sales clerk and is frustrated by how slowly the sales clerk responds.
那另外一个例子，一位穿着红色外套的女士快速的与销售员交谈，销售员慢吞吞的反应让她感到挫败。
Sales clerk maybe,
What?
Let's think. I just was joking. I said the sales clerk may be a Taurus, and he's slow responding there.
那么这个销售员可能是一个金牛座的人，他的反应比较慢。
All right. But all of you have seen this when you're out shopping. Some people are very patient. Some are very impatient. It's just, Venus in Aries is less patient.
当你去购物的时候，你们都会看到，有些人呢，他们是比较耐心的，有些人是没有耐心的。那么金星在白羊座的人呢，是比较没有耐心的。
And we know that red is a Mars color, which can sometimes certainly fit Aries.
那么我们知道红色是火星的颜色，当然它也是符合白羊座的。
We know that she's also talking quickly because Gemini tends to talk very fast.
而且我们知道他说话语速很快，因为我们知道双子座呢，他们的说话很快的。
So here we're combining Aries and Gemini through Venus and Mercury. See?
这样我们就通过金星和水星把白羊座和双子座联系在了一起。
It's really very simple. This is just a woman who wants, come on, talk to me. I'm interested in this, and you're not giving me the information I need. Come on, come on.
那这个是常见的，这样一个女性，她可能说，哎呀，我对这个感兴趣，你赶快跟我说说这个东西吧，快点。
If I want something, if I want to buy something, I want to buy something now.
如果我想买什么东西的话，我现在就要买。
If I have to wait too long, I may not want to buy it.
如果你让我等得太久，我可能就不买了。
That's Venus in Aries.
那是金星在白羊座。
Okay. All right. I'm sure some of you may have Venus in Aries, or you know people with Venus in Aries.
那么你们肯定也认识那些金星在白羊座的人吧？
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So when you want something, you want it now. You don't want to have to wait for it too much.
那么如果
It's like, I'll do it later.
那如果金星在白羊座呢？你如果想要什么东西，你现在就想要，你不会想过一会儿再说。
What did Zhao Jing say? The question there.
Venus in Aries, Mercury in Taurus. What about this combination?
Oh, that's a very. There's a smooth, slower quality to the communication.
那么如果水星在金牛的话呢，它的交流就不会那么快。
But the calm in the voice for Mercury and Taurus doesn't fully represent the Aries, what the Aries wants.
但是他们声音虽然很平静，但是却不能代表这个金星白羊的他想要的这种感觉。虽然表面上声音平静。
Sometimes it could be this person learns how to communicate in a way that satisfies that Venus in Aries. It's possible.
这个人他可能需要去学习如何去更好的交流，以满足金星在白羊的这种需求。
Let me respond also to Jovine too a little bit, or Jovine, about the Venus in Aries. Keep in mind, we're talking about still very pure, kind of basic attributes.
那么这位同学也问了，另外一位同学也问问题哈，但是我们一定要想，现在我们说的这种组合，我们是说的纯粹的金星在白羊的这种能量表达。
Because as you'll learn in the next course, how a planet is aspected can modify it significantly.
因为在我们下节课呢，你们会学到这个行星的相位它会修正这个行星的表达。
That's important, and the house position, of course, which you'll learn about in this course.
而且这个行星所在的宫位也会修正这个行星的表达。
All right. Now, the last example was a middle-aged woman with a slightly husky voice smiles at a handsome younger man on the elevator and asks him where he's from, making conversation with him until he arrives at his floor.
那最后一个这个例子的一个表达是一位声音略带沙哑的中年女性在天梯中微笑地询问一位帅小伙从哪儿来，与他攀谈直到他到达他要去的楼层。
Again, this is something that I saw actually on the elevator in my building in Pinghua.
那这也是我在我苹果社区我看在电梯里遇到的一幕场景。
And so I wondered, is this woman in Aries? Does she have Venus in Aries? Why did I wonder that?
那么我就会想，哎，这个女性是不是金星在白羊座呀？她是不是有什么东西在白羊座呀？我为什么会这么想呢？
I wondered that because even though Mercury is the planet of communication, Venus rules the throat.
我之所以这样想，虽然说水星是和沟通相关，但是呢，金星是和我们的喉咙这个部位相
Remember,
关
like
的。
Taurus, Venus also associated with the throat. And I have found that the position of Venus has a little bit to do with the sound of the voice. Mercury may influence the style of communication, whether it's fast or slow, what you think about, but Venus sometimes can influence the sound, the tone of the voice a little bit.
水星虽然说跟我们交流的这种方式是它交流的方式相关，但是有时候金星呢会影响我们的听起来的声音，喉咙跟喉咙相关，所以说听起来的声音会跟金星有关系。
And Aries is a slightly more masculine vibration.
那么白羊座是一个更男性化的能量的表达的这样一个星座。
And I've therefore noticed in my life that women with Venus in Aries sometimes have a little bit stronger tone
那么
to their
我注意
voice.
到一些金星在白羊座的女性呢，她们的嗓音更强一些。
Now, notice what else is going on here. She is being very assertive with this young man. She is not shy.
另外呢，你还注意到我在这里表达，就是说她是跟这个男性主动攀谈，她并不害羞。
See, and she is direct. She is flirting a little bit with this younger man, this handsome younger man.
她
Just a little.
她是蛮直截了当的，她有点跟这个帅小伙有点调情，有一点点。
And because she has Mercury and Gemini, she can talk really well.
因为她水星在双子座，所以说呢，她聊天聊得很好。
So she's making conversation with this young man, see.
所以说她是跟这个帅小伙聊天。
Now, I saw this on the elevator in Pinghua one morning coming to work.
那有一天早上呢，我在苹果看到了这个景象，反应高亢，对对对。
There was a young guy who was very handsome, but he was a young delivery guy. He was delivering some kind of package or something in the building.
这个年轻人呢，挺帅的，不过他实际上他是一个送快递的。
And the woman on the elevator was older, probably in her 50s, I would say.
那么这个中年女性呢，是更年纪大一些，大概是50岁开外。
But it was immediately obvious that she really liked this younger guy.
但是呢，一眼就能看出来，她很喜欢这个小伙子。
And she was asking him all kinds of questions, like where are you from, and all these things.
她问他各种各样的问题，比如说你是从哪儿来的呀，等等等等。
Now I can understand that much Chinese.
我也就能明白这么多中文了。
Right. So it was. I immediately thought, this is Aries Gemini mixed together in some way.
我立刻就想，这可能是一个白羊座和双子座的这样一个组合。
All right. All right. All right. Any other questions about this? No? Yeah.
Someone has Venus in Aries but doesn't think she has a husky voice.
Well, it's not always true.
有位同学说他的金星也在白羊，但他声音并不沙哑。老师说，当然不都是这样。
In fact, it really comes down to a sort of combination of things, I think. And Mercury are very important in terms of the voice. Mercury is very important.
嗓音呢，实际上是一些就是听起来怎么样，是一些元素的组合。
Right. Some of the stronger voices, it just depends, Leo is a very strong energy. Then there's intensity, which can sometimes come through Scorpio. There's many different combinations.
有很多不同的表现，比如说狮子座他们也是一个很强的这样一个能量，而那种激烈性呢，有时候是天蝎座的表达等等。
Voices really intrigue me, so I've sort of made a casual study of them all my life.
因为我很被嗓音所吸引，所以说我对嗓音做了一些研究。
What's this, the keep flirting attitude, talking about Venus and Aries? Is that joke?
I think we need to go on, otherwise it's only 30 minutes.
Well, but we're getting there.
Okay. They say you have a nice voice.
I have Mercury conjunct Venus in Libra.
这位同学夸大卫老师嗓子好。大卫很快就说，他的水晶合相在天秤座。
I'll tell you something funny about that.
给你们讲讲好玩的。
When I was about 9 years old, 10 years old, maybe 11, somewhere around in there, 10 or 11.
在我11岁的时候。
I got a small tape recorder as a birthday gift.
有人给了我一个生日礼物，是一个小的录音磁带。
This was a long time ago, okay?
这是很久很久以前了。
And these were the old realtor tape recorders,
是那种老式的录音卡带。
But I loved this tape recorder.
但是我特别喜欢这个录音带。
And I would play with my voice on the tape recorder.
录音机啊，录音机不是录音带哈。然后呢，我就会在这个录音机，就是试我的声音，我就会录下我的声音来玩。
Experimenting with different ways of how I would sound to other people.
我会实验，就是说，别人听起来我的嗓音是什么样的，做各种各样的实验。
Because as a Libra, I wanted to know how will I sound to others.
因为作为一个天秤座，我想要知道别人听到我的声音到底是什么样的。
And so I used to practice speaking with the tape recorder when I was 11 years old.
所以11岁的时候呢，我就会用那个录音机呢做练习，录下来我的声音。
Now that's very Libra, isn't it?
这是非常天秤座的一个行为，是不是啊？
All right. All right. So here we're going to take a look at what do we mean by the psychological category or the psychological expression of the planets and signs and different combinations.
那么下面我们来看看心理层面是什么意思，就是这种行星星座组合，它的心理层面到底什么意思？
Okay. Here we have this character. I love this cartoon. This guy looks like a...
我找的这个卡通画。
This guy looks like he could be a Libra or Venus in Libra with Mars in Cancer to me.
这个人看上去就像一个金星在天秤座、水星在巨蟹座的人。
He says, so my Venus is in Libra and I've got Mars in Cancer. And half the time I'm angry at myself for being too nice. So you can read this out, Felicia. You
我
just
的
read
金
the whole
星在
thing.
天秤座，火星在巨蟹座，有一半的时间我都会因自己过于和善而生气。那我记得3年级的时候，我把自己的冰激凌给了这个女孩，结果她全吃掉了。我本来以为她会留些给我，我非常生气，不知道该怎么办。我总是个公平的人，但是我现在却是个有慢性胃病的公平的人。
Okay, now this was meant to be funny, but there's a lot of principles in here.
这个好像是在搞笑哈，但是这里面确实讲到了很多的原则。
What do we see associated with Libra?
我们看到哪些是跟天秤座联系在一起呢？哪些表达
This is obvious. He's nice. He's fair. He gives something to this girl when he's little.
这是很明显的，他是一个很和善的人，而且他是很公平的人。在他3年级的时候呢，他把他自己的冰激凌给了这个女孩。
But what do we see associated with Cancer?
但是我们看到什么跟巨蟹座联系在一起了呢？
First off, notice that he's talking about something that happened a long time ago. This was in 3rd grade.
你看，你注意到他是谈了很久很久之前发生的事，在他小学3年级的事儿。
We know the sign Cancer can be nostalgic in the positive sense.
我们知道巨蟹座呢，就是就积极层面来说呢，他们也是一个就是喜欢回忆过去的人，有怀旧的。
There's also the tendency to dwell sometimes upon childhood experiences.
但是有时候呢，他们也会去不断的想童年的这些经历。
Into a boy in the 3rd grade, ice cream with Mars and Cancer. Ice cream is probably, important to him.
那么另外对于这个火星巨蟹座的人，这个冰激凌可能对他还是挺重要的。
And I think Libra probably likes sweets. I know Taurus likes sweets.
那么天秤座呢也喜欢那个甜食，我们知道那个金牛座喜欢甜食。
But what we're really describing here is a guy who has trouble being able to assert himself a little bit.
那么我们这里描述的实际上是这个男人呢，他有一些议题，他不太能够表达自己想要什么。
He was socially generous. He shared, see, Libra, he shared something that he has, that he valued.
那么他在社交的时候呢，他是蛮慷慨的，这个天秤座的人，他是会跟别人分享他自己认为很有价值的东西。
But he was not able to easily act as directly about his own self-interest.
但是呢，他不太容易为了自己的利益而采取行动。
What's the conflict here? I want her to like me. I want her to like me.
那么这里面他的矛盾是他的纠结是在哪儿呢？这个男人希望这个女孩喜欢他自己。
But I want some ice cream too. See,
但
self-interest.
是，所以我把我的冰激凌给他了，但是我自己还想吃点冰激凌呢。
He also made the assumption that she would share some of it with him.
那而且他本来是设想这个女孩总会给他留点的。
But he was upset by this.
但是呢，这女孩全吃了，所以说他也很生气。
And he did not know what to do. He didn't know what action to take.
而且他不知道现在该怎么办了，他不知道采取什么样的行动。
So he did a Cancer thing. He internalized, it's a water sign, he internalized the anger.
那么 这时候呢，他就做了一个巨蟹座会做的事儿，因为巨蟹座呢是一个水象的星座，他把他的愤怒内化了。
And so this tells us the answer to question number 2. What is the psychological issue that is impacting him physically?
那么这个我们就谈到了这个第二个问题，什么样的心理议题影响了他的身体呢？
He says in his last sentence, I've always been a fair guy, you know, but now I'm a fair guy with chronic stomach problems.
那么所以说他在最后一句话里表达了出来，他说我总是一个公平的人，但是呢，我现在却是一个有了慢性胃病的公平的人了。
We know the stomach is the sign Cancer, and Mars can mean inflammation. Inflammation.
我们知道呢，胃是和巨蟹座联系在一起的，而火星呢是和发炎联系在一起的。所以
Now Helen makes a very good point here. Hello?
Hello?
I lost you for a second. I said Helen makes a very good point.
Helen 说的很对。Helen 说，他为什么不把这个给这女孩一半冰激凌呢？一开始就给她一半冰激凌呢？当他对朋友非常的公平和友善的时候，他也需要对自己公平和友善。
Okay. Before we go to different combinations, let's talk more about this one because Helen's made some very good points here.
Helen 说了一个很好的观点。
What we see here is a little bit of a self-worth dilemma. Helen is very right. He gave her all of the ice cream, see, he assumed she would share it.
他把他所有的冰淇淋都给那个女孩了。他原来以为这个女孩呢也会跟他分享。
He's not including himself in the bargain with others.
他在跟别人的讨价还价中没把自己的利益放进去。
And the answer is why? Because he fears that he might be rejected.
那为什么呢？为什么他会有这样的行为呢？原因是他害怕他会被拒绝。
This also means he has insecurity about what will happen if he asserts himself.
那么这也是意味着，他是有一些不安全感，他害怕如果是他能够表达自己的主张的时候，别人会不会拒绝他？
If I show someone that I am angry or upset, they may reject me. They may not like me.
我表示出我很生气，我很愤怒，别人会不会拒绝我呢？
So he has a negative belief system about himself, doesn't he?
所以说呢，他对他自己呢有一个负面的信念体系。
I see this guy. See, he's holding his little belly here.
而且你看这个男的哈，他躺在这个诊疗椅上，他还那个用手护着肚子。
All right. So let's talk about this just a little bit. What would you suggest to this kind of whining man that might help him?
那你会对这个牢骚满腹的男子，你会怎么样去建议他呢？
First off, you would want to ask him questions about acceptance in his life growing up. In other words, where did he feel he was not loved or accepted?
首先你会问他在他童年的时候，他是在什么地方感觉没有被接纳？
You might also want to ask him questions about male influence. What kind of behavior did his father have?
另外呢，你可能也要问问他男性的他家里那些成年男性对他的影响，比如他父亲对他的影响。
because he's gotten some kind of negative message about expressing his emotions.
因为他得到了一些负面的信息，就关于怎么表达自己的情绪方面，他有一些负面的信息。
You see, he really wants the connection with others. He wants that connection very much.
你看，他确实很希望跟他人之间有这样的连接，他非常想要这样的连接。
But because he's a more moody, more emotional guy, he feels vulnerable, very vulnerable.
但是呢，因为他是一个情绪多变的这样一个男人，他是一个就是说多愁善感的男人，所以说呢，他也感觉到自己非常的脆弱。
So I think it's very important in a consultation for him to be able to recognize his vulnerability.
因为他是这样一个情绪化的男人，所以说在我们给他的咨询中呢，非常重要的是他要接纳自己的脆弱性。
To accept his vulnerability.
他要接纳自己的脆弱性。
And begin to undo some of the attitudes and judgments that he has about his vulnerability.
然后呢，他要去解开他对他自己这种脆弱性的一些评判。
Most people have shame on top of their vulnerability. They feel shame.
大多数人对于自己的脆弱都感觉到很羞愧。
Because again, they are judging their vulnerability, and they
因
feel
为他们
ashamed.
在评判自己的脆弱性，所以他们才会羞愧。
And this is the kind of discussion you would want to have with someone who had this issue.
那么对于有这样议题的人呢，你需要跟他做这样一场对话。
Because it's entirely possible that this man could have a very healthy Mars in Cancer and Venus in Libra.
因为这个人呢，他是有可能有非常健康的火星在巨蟹、金星在天秤的表达的。
In this example, we're seeing an unhealthy expression of it.
那么在这个例子中，我们看到的是不健康的表达。
And we're seeing the relationship between our psychological makeup and our physical health.
那么我们也看到了我们的心理层面和我们的健康层面之间的联系。
Okay.
我们的心理素质和我们的心理构造和我们的健康之间的联系。
Are there some comments about this specifically that you think are interesting, please?
What's the manifestation of the most healthy manifestation?
This would be a guy who is comfortable, becomes more comfortable with his own moodiness and insecurity.
那么如果他健康的表达呢，就对于他自己的情绪化，还有他自己的脆弱性，他会感觉到很舒适。
He learns to say something like, "You're going to share that with me, aren't you?"
他已经学会了要表达出来，说出来说，哎，你要跟我分享那个冰激凌的，对吧？
That's my favorite flavor of ice cream. I love that kind of ice cream.
那是我最喜欢的冰激凌，我喜欢那个口味的冰激凌。
He's learning how to include himself in his agreements and sharing with others.
他在和他人的协议中，他能够把他自己的利益也放进去。
He's more willing to admit when he doesn't feel secure with something.
当他如果是对某个事情他感觉到不安全的话呢，他也愿意表达出来、流露出来这种情感。
If, for example, his wife, let's say he's married, or let's say has a girlfriend, and his girlfriend asks him, "Did you talk with your boss today about getting a raise?"
我们假设现在他有了个女朋友，他的女朋友问他，你今天跟你老板谈没谈你那个升职的问题？
and he might say, if in a healthy way, he might say, I thought about it, but I didn't feel ready to really talk with him yet.
那一个健康的表达方式呢，就是说这个男人可能说，我是考虑了，但是我今天觉得我还没有准备好跟老板谈这个问题。
I noticed that my boss was in a bad mood.
我注意到我老板今天心情不好。
And I didn't feel, therefore, that this was a good time for me to talk with him.
我觉得今天可能不是一个好的时机跟他谈这个问题。
Here he's using Cancer in an intuitive way to know when is it best for me to assert myself.
那么他就非常积极的用了他的巨蟹座的这种直觉性的能量，他知道什么时候更容易表达他的要求。
I didn't feel ready, and my boss was in a bad mood.
我没有感觉准备好，而且我老板现在心情不好。
Now, his girlfriend might question him and say, not an excuse.
What?
His girlfriend might question him and say, are you sure that's not just an excuse for not asking your boss?
那他的女朋友可能质问他，你确信你这不是一个借口？你不跟你老板谈，不是借口，不是一个借口。
And then he can look at her and say, hey, I know that I feel a little insecure asking him for a raise. I know I do.
那么他可能看着他女朋友说，嘿，我知道，现在我要向老板提这个要求，我是有些不安全感。
But I am going to.
但是我会提这个要求的。
When it feels right, I'm going to do it. You'll see.
当我感觉时机对的时候，我会这么做的。你等着瞧。
That is a more healthy Mars in Cancer.
这是一个更健康的火星巨蟹的表达。
He accepts his own style of action.
他接纳他自己的行为的方式。
He knows when it is right for him to assert himself regarding his own self-interest.
他知道什么时候对他最合适，就是就他自己的利益来说，什么时候行动对他最合适。
And at that point, he doesn't have anything else to prove to his girlfriend. He feels that he knows what he will do.
那个时候呢，他不觉得他必须向他的女朋友证明些什么。
And because he accepts it, and because he accepts himself, his girlfriend will accept it too. See?
因为他接纳了自己，所以他的女朋友也会接纳这一点。
Okay. Are we getting some comments about this?
No, not about this. They're talking about.
Okay. Another thing. All right. So let's go on to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what people say to this one. Okay, here we have two of our no-door students.
那么这个下面是我们的两个弱道学生。
And this one girl says, my freedom is so important to me, but commitment is too, and so forth. You can read this, Felicia.
这个女孩说，我非常看重我的自由，但是呢，承诺也很重要。我想要结婚，但我不想立即生小孩，我希望等到年纪再大一些。我很难相信有男人不介意我有一半的时间不在他身边。当然，他必须聪明有趣，有时候喜欢与我一起旅行。或者他应该有一半的时间自己在外面。这怎么才能行得通呢？你知道，我认为自己是个乐观的悲观主义者，我相信一切都会好起来，即使我在30岁前都没有结婚。
Okay. So what do you think her sun sign and moon sign is? This is the question.
你们觉得她的太阳星座和月亮星座是什么呢？这是我的第一个问题。Some said, this is exactly what she thought.
Okay.
some says that sun in Sag and moon in, let me check. Sun in Sag and moon in, wow.
Can't read it?
Because they keep on typing.
So
moon in
fast?
Capricorn.
Yeah.
Sun in
Yeah, I
Sag,
know.
moon in Capricorn.
Yeah. Very
Sag,
good. Who said that?
Sun in Sag, moon in, oh, it ran away.
It ran away. Now there may be other answers, but that was the answer that I had in my... Alicia?
Someone said Sag and Aquarius. Someone said Sag
Okay. But let's
Sun in
explore.
Sag, moon in Aquarius.
Okay, let's explore Sun in Sagittarius, Moon in Capricorn, because that was what was in my mind.
我们看一看太阳在射手座，月亮在摩羯座吧，因为这是我当时写这段的时候我想的。
Right. Okay. And we can look at the key words here. Freedom, important. That's certainly Sagittarius.
我们看看这里面关键词，自由很重要，这自然是射手座。
Commitment is certainly concern with commitment. That's Capricorn.
这是承诺，那么对承诺的这种在意，这是摩羯座。
And then she says, I want to get married, but I don't want kids right away. I want to wait until I'm older. This can be more of a Moon in Capricorn response.
我想要结婚，但我不想要生小孩，我希望年纪再大一些，这是一个月亮在摩羯座的表达。
And then she's just sort of debating this whole problem. It's like hard for me to believe there's a guy that wouldn't mind me being away half the time. This is a Sagittarius dilemma.
那么然后呢，他开始自己在自己在内在有这个争辩，他说他很难相信有男人不介意他有一半的时间不在他身边，这是一个射手座的两难的处境。
Of course, he's got to be smart and funny. This is very Sagittarius. Like to travel with me sometimes, Sagittarius.
当然他必须聪明有趣，有时候喜欢与我旅行，这是射手座。
And then or maybe he should be gone half the time. How would that work?
或者是他说应该这个男的有一半时间都不在家里，这个怎么才能行得通呢？
And here is a very good combination of Sagittarius and Capricorn. I think I'm an optimistic pessimist.
那么乐观的悲观主义者是射手座、摩羯座的一个很好，这个组合的很好的一个表述方式。
I believe everything is going to be okay, even if I fail to marry before I'm 30.
即便是我在30岁之前都没结婚，我相信一切也会好。
This is probably more of an issue in China, but two things that are Capricorn here. Concern with failure, there's the word failure, and the age of 30 is an age of maturity. This is Capricorn. So.
这可能是中国的一个常见现象。不过呢，这里面也有一些摩羯座的关键词，比如说 feel， 就是说没有结婚，没有结成婚，这是个摩羯座的担心。还有是30岁，30岁呢也是一个成熟的这样一个年龄，也是土星回归啊这样一个年龄。
I see some solutions being offered. This is very interesting. One says maybe she needs a man with Moon in Sagittarius. The other one says she should marry an Aquarius. I love this. All right.
有人说她可能是应该嫁一个月亮在射手座的人，有人说她应该嫁给一个水瓶座的人。
And of course, Helen loves this because she has the Moon in Sagittarius and Capricorn rising.
当然海伦也是喜欢这个，因为她的月亮在摩羯座，上升是在水瓶座。
And let's see, Leon, what did Leon say? Young said, how about Sun in Sagittarius and Venus in Capricorn? Okay, that's
这
interesting.
位同学说，太阳在射手座，金星在摩羯座，怎么样呢？
I think there would be similar issues, very similar, with Sun in
确实，
Sag
这样
and
有
Venus
几
in
个也会有类似的这样的议题。
Though the difference would be Venus, you see, the moon is more concerned with family, and Venus is not as concerned with family as the moon is.
不同是月亮更在意这个家庭，那么金星呢，不像月亮这么在乎家庭。
And Capricorn is certainly concerned with duty, responsibility, and status.
那么摩羯座毫无疑问和责任啊、义务啊，还有社会地位啊，他很关心这些问题。
But the moon in Capricorn is going to be more concerned about the duty, responsibility, and status for family or with family. See?
那么月亮在摩羯座的呢，它更在意这个跟家庭相关的责任、义务，还有地位。
The Venus in Capricorn is more interested in the commitment of the marriage, even the status that the marriage provides as well.
那么金星在摩羯座呢，它是更在意的是婚姻，还有是这个结婚能够带来的社会地位。
Though the freedom is still really important. See?
当然了，自由仍然是非常重要。
But she's going to like her freedom, but she's going to notice if the guy is driving a Lexus.
他这个人呢，他喜欢他的自由，但是他会更注意到那个开着劳斯莱斯车的男人。
Okay. All right. We've reached the end of our lesson, but I want to share with you this last page.
那么我们今天课堂时间结束了，不过我还想跟大家再看一下最后一页。
Some of you had questions about the term sociological.
有些人对于社交层面这个词，社交的意思不太理解。
And all it really means is the people in your life. Who are the people in your life? All the people.
社交层面意思就是说那些出现在你生活中的人。
Some of this is really obvious.
有些是非常明显的。
You know, the sun can relate to father, and the moon to mother, and Venus to our friends and loved ones.
那么太阳和父亲相关，月亮和母亲相关，金星对我们所爱的人，还有我们的朋友，这个是相关。有些这些是明显的。
Saturn might be an older person,
有
even
些
a
可能是一
mentor
个老人，
sometimes, or a grandparent.
祖父母。
And then there's all the people we work with, which you'll learn more about these associations too when we get into the houses, by the way. But
还有是和我们的同事，我们在工作时候遇到的人等等。顺便说一下，当你们学到宫位的时候，你们会学到更多的东西。
But you can even think about, let me give you an example. When I don't know if this is the same way in China, but well, I know it is. All of when I lived in Los Angeles, we had a mailman that would walk through the neighborhood delivering mail, putting mail in all the mailboxes. And this is a Mercury person. The person who is a delivery person is the person who represents Mercury in your life. This is a Mercury. See what I'm saying? Mercury association.
还有各种各样的这种表达，比如说那些邮递员，当我住在洛杉矶的时候，我们的邮递员他们会把信投到我们的信箱里面，那邮递员就是我们星图上的水星。
Sometimes Mars might mean either a guard, the person who guards your apartment complex, or the policeman.
有时候火星意味着那个保安或者是警察。
Mm-hmm. So I want you to start thinking about the planets and signs in terms of recognizing those associations and how they can manifest in your life.
我就希望大家去想这些行星和星位，想想看它们的联系，想想看这些行星和星座，行星和星座，它们是怎么在你们的生活中显化出来的？它们可能显化成为你身边的人、周围的人、遇到的人。
We know that Mercury can also be a sibling or a neighbor or a cousin.
我们知道水星可能是我们的兄弟姊妹、我们的邻居、我们的表兄弟、表姊妹。
All of those are sociological correspondences, just means the people in your life.
所有的这些社交层面，实际上就意味着你生活中、生命中的人。
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So that's it for now.
今天就到此为止。
I look forward to talking with you again next week, and I'll be back in China. I'll be back in China in 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks.
我再过3周就又再回到中国了。
Yes. Okay. 再见。再见。Bye bye. Yes. Bye.